The asteroid field stretched across the view screen like a river of stone, each chunk of rock tumbling slowly through the endless void. Research vessel Nebula Seeker moved carefully between the larger asteroids, its sensors sweeping the area for anything unusual. Another waste of time, grumbled Officer Marek, his blue scales shifting to a dull gray that reflected his boredom. 3 cycles of scanning space rocks. Professor Telnar ignored the complaint. The tall, thin alien continued, studying the sensor readings. 4 of his 6 eyes focused on different screens while his primary eyes remained fixed on the main view screen. After 50 years as the Commonwealth's leading archaeologist, he had learned that patience was the most valuable tool in his collection. "There is something," he said quietly, tapping a long finger against one of the screens. "Look at this. Surek, this asteroid is not moving like the others." "So?" Marek shrugged his wide shoulders. "Asteroids bump into each other all the time. No, look at its path. It's too regular." Telnar magnified the image. "And the shape is wrong. Asteroids are not this smooth. Pilot, take us closer." The Nebula Seeker changed course, thrusters firing in short bursts as it approached the strange object. As they drew nearer, the true nature of their discovery became clear. It wasn't an asteroid at all. "By the first suns," whispered Telnar, his voice filled with awe. "It's a ship." Floating silently among the asteroids was a vessel unlike any in the Commonwealth database. It was dark gray with sharp angles and what appeared to be weapon mounts along its hull. Unlike the smooth, curved designs of modern Commonwealth ships, this vessel looked brutal and purposeful. "Run a full scan," ordered Telnar, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. "I want to know everything about it." The science team worked quickly, their instruments probing the mysterious ship. "No power signatures detected," reported Science Officer Loral, her tentacles dancing across her control panel. "The vessel appears completely dead." "Age estimate?" asked Telnar. "Difficult to be precise," Loral replied, "but surface degradation suggests at least 3,000 years. 3,000! Marek exclaimed. "That's older than the Commonwealth itself." Telnar nodded slowly. "We may have found a relic from before the Great Joining, perhaps from one of the lost species." "It's big," said Pilot Kren, from the front of the bridge. "Almost twice the size of our research vessel, and built for war," added Marek, pointing to what were clearly weapon emplacements. "Look at those cannons. Whatever race built this, they were fighters." Telnar studied the dead ship with growing excitement. Discoveries like this came once in a lifetime. An intact vessel from an unknown species could reveal countless secrets about the galaxy's past. "Prepare a towing beam," he ordered. "We're taking it back to Research Station Epsilon." "Is that wise?" asked Marek, his scales shifting to a cautious orange. "We know nothing about this vessel. It's been floating dead for thousands of years," Telnar replied with a dismissive wave of his hand. "What harm could it possibly do now?" 3 days later, the Nebula Seeker arrived at Research Station Epsilon, a massive ring-shaped structure orbiting a gas giant in the Proxima system. The mysterious vessel hung in the station's main research bay, looking out of place among the sleek Commonwealth technology surrounding it. Commander Voss stood before the ancient ship, his forearms crossed over his chest in a posture of deep thought. As station director, he had seen many strange artifacts come through Epsilon, but nothing quite like this. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Telnar, joining the commander on the observation deck. "Indeed," Voss replied, his gravelly voice echoing slightly in the large chamber. "Your report mentioned possible weapon systems?" Telnar nodded. "Primitive by our standards, but numerous. This vessel was built for combat." "Any idea who built it?" "None yet. We found no match in our historical databases. It could be from one of the species that disappeared during the Dark Time." Commander Voss stroked one of his facial tendrils thoughtfully. "This could be significant, Professor. If we can learn about its weapons technology, even if primitive, it might give us insights we've lost over time." "My thoughts exactly," Telnar agreed. "I've already assembled a research team to begin studying it immediately." Voss turned to face the archaeologist, all four of his eyes blinking in sequence. The Science Council will be very interested in this discovery. If we can learn enough, it could mean additional funding for the station. And recognition, added Telnar with a smile that revealed his small pointed teeth. I've requested permission to name it. I'm thinking Telnar's relic has a nice sound to it. Voss made a sound that passed for laughter among his species. Let's see what we learn first, Professor. The next morning, Telnar led a team of 12 researchers into the ancient vessel. They had cut an entrance through what appeared to be a cargo hold door, as all other access points remained sealed. Remember, Telnar instructed as they entered, touch nothing without scanning it first. This ship is thousands of years old and we don't know what dangers it might contain. The interior was dark and cold, their lights casting long shadows down the narrow corridors. Unlike the organic-inspired designs of Commonwealth ships, this vessel was all metal and sharp angles. The walls were lined with pipes and conduits, suggesting an emphasis on function over comfort. These markings, said Research Assistant Brill, pointing to symbols etched into a wall panel. They could be some form of writing. Telnar examined the strange symbols. They consisted of straight lines and curves arranged in patterns that definitely suggested language but matched nothing in the Commonwealth archives. Document everything, he ordered. We'll try to decipher it later. The team moved deeper into the ship, mapping as they went. They found what appeared to be crew quarters, a mess hall, and numerous storage rooms. Everything was built to a scale similar to Commonwealth standard, suggesting the creators had been roughly the same size as most known species. Professor, called Science Officer Laurel from further down the corridor. You need to see this. Telnar hurried to join her. She stood before a massive door with a complex locking mechanism. I believe this is the bridge, she said, her tentacles waving with excitement. It took the team 4 hours to bypass the ancient security measures and force the door open. When it finally slid aside with a grinding sound, they stepped into what was indeed the command center of the vessel. Unlike the utilitarian design of the rest of the ship, the bridge showed signs of importance. The central chair, clearly for the commander, was larger and positioned to view multiple control stations. Various screens and panels surrounded it, all dark and lifeless. Begin power analysis, ordered Telnar. I want to know if there's any way to activate these systems without damaging them. As the team spread out across the bridge, Telnar approached what appeared to be the main console. His fingers traced the strange symbols etched into its surface. One sequence was repeated several times. UNSC Thunderchild. Could be the ship's name, he mused. Thunderchild. UNSC. The rest of the day passed in a blur of activity as the team documented everything they found. By evening, they had mapped roughly 30% of the vessel, but had yet to discover its propulsion system or weapons controls. Back at the research station, Telnar reported their findings to Commander Voss. A remarkable vessel, he concluded, built by an unknown species with a level of technology that was advanced in some ways, primitive in others. And you're certain it's dead? Asked Voss. Completely, Telnar assured him. No power signatures whatsoever. It's been floating in that asteroid field for millennia. Voss nodded, satisfied. Excellent work, Professor. Continue your research. I'll inform the Science Council of our progress. As Telnar left the commander's office, he couldn't shake a strange feeling. Something about the ancient warship called to him. Perhaps it was just the thrill of discovery, the knowledge that his name would be forever linked to this find. Or perhaps it was something else, something he couldn't quite identify. Little did he know that the dead ship was not as dead as it seemed. Deep within its core, a single system remained active, drawing power from reserves hidden from Commonwealth scanners, a timer that had been counting down for thousands of years, and it had very little time left. Morning on Research Station Epsilon began with a flurry of activity. Word of the ancient vessel had spread throughout the station, drawing curious onlookers to the observation deck. Professor Telnar ignored them all as he led his expanded research. Team back to the ship. Today we focus on 3 main areas, he announced as they gathered in the cargo bay they had first entered. Team 1 will continue mapping the vessel's layout. Team 2 will attempt to decipher the writing we found. Team 3 will examine the technology and materials. Telnar assigned himself to Team 3, along with Science Officer Laurel and Engineer Dax, a stocky four-armed alien whose species was known for their technical skills. Together, they headed for a section of the ship they had briefly explored the day before, a room filled with strange cylindrical chambers. "These look like some kind of storage units," said Dax, running his scanner over one of the cylinders. "But they're connected to power conduits and life support systems." "Life support?" Telner's eyes widened. "Are you certain?" Dax nodded. "All. 4 hands working different tools. These pipes would have carried air, nutrients, and waste removal. Whatever was stored in these chambers was alive." "Stasis pods," suggested Laurel, her tentacles moving excitedly. "Some species use them for long-distance space travel." Telnar moved along the row of pods, counting. 20 in total, all empty. He paused at the end of the row. "No, not all empty. This one is different." The final pod was slightly larger than the others. Unlike the open, clearly abandoned pods, this one remained sealed, its outer casing intact. A small panel on its side showed strange symbols in red. "What does your scanner say, Dax?" asked Telnar. The engineer frowned, adjusting his device. "It's difficult to get clear readings. The pod's walls contain some kind of shielding material." "Can we open it?" Laurel inquired, moving closer. "Not without further study," Telnar replied firmly. "Mark it for special attention, but leave it sealed for now." They continued their investigation, moving deeper into the ship. Each discovery raised more questions than answers. The technology was unlike anything in Commonwealth records, more primitive in some ways, surprisingly advanced in others. Meanwhile, in another section of the ship, Team 2 had made a breakthrough. "Professor," called Brill through the communication device, "we've found something important. Can you join us on the bridge?" When Telnar arrived, Brill was standing before a large screen embedded in the wall. "We've managed to access some of the ship's data storage," Brill explained, looking proud. "Most of it is corrupted beyond recovery, but we found this." He pressed a sequence of buttons and the screen flickered to life, displaying a symbol, a blue circle with white lines forming a shape inside it. "A flag or emblem," Telnar mused. "Belonging to the species that built this ship, presumably." "Yes, but look at this next image." The screen changed to show a group of beings standing in a line. They were bipedal, with 2 arms and a single head, similar to several Commonwealth species, but their skin appeared to be hairless and varied in color from pale to dark brown. "Are those the ship's builders?" asked Telnar. "We believe so," Brill replied, "and we found a designation repeated throughout the data. Human." "Human," Telnar repeated, testing the strange word. "And what of UNSC? Some kind of organization or government, we think. United something. Parts of the data are too damaged to be certain." Telnar studied the image of the humans with growing excitement. An entirely unknown species. His discovery was becoming more significant by the hour. "Have you found anything about their homeworld?" he asked. Brill shook his head. "Nothing specific, but there are references to a place called Earth. It could be their planet of origin." "Keep working," Telnar instructed. "I want to know everything about these humans." Commander Voss received Telnar's daily report with increasing interest. "So this ship belonged to a species called humans, who are not listed in any Commonwealth records," he summarized. "Exactly," confirmed Telnar. "They appear to have been a spacefaring civilization at least 3,000 years ago, but we have no record of contact with them." Voss leaned back in his chair, thinking. Could they have existed before the Commonwealth formed? Possibly, Telnar agreed. Or they might have inhabited a region of space we never explored. The galaxy is vast, Commander. And you say their technology was unusual? Telnar nodded enthusiastically. Their computer systems are primitive compared to ours, yet their weapons technology appears remarkably advanced for their era. The ship is built almost entirely for combat. Warlike, then, Voss mused. It would seem so. We found no evidence of scientific equipment or diplomatic facilities. The UNSC Thunderchild was a vessel of war. Voss's expression grew serious. What of the sealed pod you mentioned? We're still studying it. Dax believes it might still be functional in some way, despite the ship's overall power loss. Be careful, Professor, warned Voss. If these humans were as warlike as their ship suggests, anything of theirs could be dangerous. The next day, Telnar gathered his team for a special examination of the sealed pod. After extensive scanning, Dax had concluded it was safe to attempt accessing the pod's control systems. The pod has its own power source, explained Dax. Some kind of long-lasting battery that's still functional after all this time. What's inside it? Asked Loral. Dax adjusted his scanner. Organic material, definitely, but I can't get more specific readings through the shielding. Could it be one of the humans? Suggested Brill. In some kind of suspended animation? After 3,000 years? Marek scoffed. No life support system is that good? Perhaps not, said Telnar. But we should proceed as if there's something valuable inside. He turned to Dax. Can you open it safely? The engineer studied the pod's control panel. I believe so. The system is surprisingly intuitive. With careful movements, Dax began manipulating the controls. Lights on the panel changed from red to amber. It's starting some kind of sequence, he reported. Possibly a safety check before opening. Everyone stepped back as the pod hummed to life. Frost that had formed on its surface began to melt, and indicator lights blinked in patterns along its length. Life signs, exclaimed Loral, staring at her scanner. I'm detecting life signs inside. Impossible, muttered Marek, but his scales had shifted to a pale yellow of fear. With a hiss of escaping gas, the pod's top section began to lift. The team watched in silence as it slowly opened to reveal its contents. Inside, lying perfectly, preserved in some kind of clear gel, was a being that matched the images they had found. A human. Its chest rose and fell in slow, shallow breaths. It's alive, whispered Telnar, unable to believe what he was seeing. After 3,000 years, it's still alive. The human's eyes remained closed, but as they watched, its fingers twitched slightly. It's waking up, said Dax, backing away from the pod. Telnar moved closer, fascination overcoming caution. This was no longer just an archaeological discovery. It was first contact with a species thought lost to time. As the team watched in stunned silence, the human's eyes snapped open. They were blue, startlingly bright against its pale skin. For a moment, those eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, then focused sharply on the alien surrounding the pod. The human's expression changed from confusion to alert wariness in an instant. Telnar raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Welcome back, he said, though he knew the human couldn't understand him. You've been asleep for a very long time. The human pushed himself up to a sitting position, movement slow but deliberate. His eyes never left the aliens surrounding him, scanning each one as if assessing threats. He wore a tight-fitting black suit that covered most of his body, with strange symbols on the shoulder that matched those found throughout the ship. Recording active, whispered Loral, her tentacles operating a small device. This is historic. The human spoke, his voice rough from disuse. The sounds were unlike any language the research team had heard before, sharp and clipped. Professor Telnar activated his universal translator, hoping it might find patterns in the human's speech. The device hummed, struggling to process the unfamiliar language. Let me try, said Brill, stepping forward with his own translator. Mine has more processing capacity. The human watched them with intense focus, saying nothing more. His hand moved slowly to his side, where something that might have been a weapon would have been, but found nothing. Telnar noticed the gesture. Non-threatening postures, everyone, he instructed his team. He's clearly military trained and disoriented. After several tense minutes, Brill's translator produced a series of sounds. The human's head snapped toward the device, his expression changing to one of surprise. Partial communication established, Brill announced excitedly. The translator has identified basic patterns in his language. The human spoke again, this time more slowly, seemingly understanding they were trying to communicate. Brill's translator crackled. Where am I? Who? You? Progress, Telnar exclaimed. Tell him we are researchers from the Galactic Commonwealth. We found his ship and brought it to our research station. Brill relayed the message through his translator. The human listened, then frowned. Commonwealth? No. Record of such organization. The translation was choppy but understandable. How long? Sleep? When Brill's translator conveyed the answer, approximately 3,000 years, the human's face went blank with shock. He sat motionless for several moments, processing this information. Impossible, came the eventual translation. Emergency, protocols. Maximum 1,000 years. An hour later, the human sat in a makeshift interview room adjacent to the ship. Commander Voss had ordered the entire area secured, with guards posted at all entrances. The human, who had identified himself as Captain Jack Foster of the United Nations Space Command, seemed to accept the situation with remarkable calm for someone who had just learned that he had slept through millennia. The translation system improved rapidly as it processed more of the human's speech. Captain Foster, for his part, proved to be an intelligent and adaptable individual, quickly learning to speak in ways the translator could better understand. You say your species is called human? Asked Telnar, recording every word. From a planet called Earth? Foster nodded, a gesture they had learned meant affirmation. Earth was our home world. We had colonies on several other planets in our solar system, and a few beyond. Yet we have no records of your kind in our historical archives, said Commander Voss, who had joined the interview. How is that possible? Foster's expression darkened. We fought a war, a terrible war that lasted for decades. Against whom? Asked Telnar. We called them the ravagers. They came from beyond our explored space. Insectoid creatures with technology, far beyond ours. Foster's hands clenched into fists. They attacked without warning or mercy. They wanted our planets not for resources but as breeding grounds. The aliens exchanged glances. The description sounded disturbingly similar to an ancient threat that had plagued the early Commonwealth, known in their histories as the Scourge. These ravagers, said Voss carefully. Did they have bioelectric weapons? Ships that resembled living organisms? Foster stared at him. Yes. How could you know that? We call them the Scourge. They attacked the early Commonwealth over 2,000 years ago. We barely survived. The human's eyes widened. Then they survived too. We thought we destroyed them. Telnar leaned forward. What do you mean? Operation Last Light, Foster explained. When we realized we couldn't win conventionally, we developed a superweapon, a network of devices that generated a wave of energy destructive only to ravager biology. We deployed it as they were overrunning our last strongholds. And it worked? Asked Voss. We thought so, but I was part of Project Sleeper, insurance in case we were wrong. The best warships in the fleet, each with a small crew in stasis, hidden throughout the galaxy. If the Ravagers returned, we would wake up and continue the fight. But you woke alone, Telnar observed. Where is your crew? Foster's expression grew grim. The Thunderchild was damaged in our final battle. The other stasis pods failed. I was in the captain's pod. It had additional safeguards. A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications sank in. Foster was possibly the last of his species, awakened in a future where everything he knew was gone. Captain Foster, said Commander Voss after a moment, I understand this must be overwhelming, but I need to ask. Your ship, is it still functional? Foster straightened, his demeanor shifting back to that of a soldier. The Thunderchild was designed to survive extended periods of dormancy. If its main reactor is intact, it could be reactivated. We detected no power signatures, said Telnar. You wouldn't, Foster replied. Silent running protocols. The ship appears dead until activated by command codes or emergency protocols. Voss and Telnar exchanged concerned looks. Perhaps we should continue this discussion later, suggested Telnar. Captain Foster needs time to adjust to his situation. Foster nodded gratefully. I would like to return to my ship if possible. There are systems I need to check. Of course, agreed Voss, though Telnar noticed the commander's skin darkening. With concern. But I must ask that you be accompanied by our security team. I understand, said Foster. In your position, I would do the same. Later, alone in quarters provided for him adjacent to the research lab, Captain Foster stood staring out a viewport at his ship. The Thunderchild looked small and vulnerable in the massive research bay, surrounded by alien technology. His mind reeled with everything he had learned. 3,000 years, the Commonwealth, the survival of the ravagers now called the Scourge. It was too much to process at once. His training took over, focusing his thoughts. First priority, determine the status of the Thunderchild. Second, assess the current political situation. Third, decide on a course of action based on his original mission parameters. Foster touched the small neural implant behind his ear. Standard issue for UNSC captains. It had been dormant during his long sleep but had reactivated when he awoke. Through it he could sense the Thunderchild, distant but present in his awareness. The ship was not dead. It was waiting. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Foster composed himself and called for them to enter. Telnar stepped inside, his long limbs moving gracefully despite his obvious excitement. Captain Foster, I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all, Professor. I wanted to inform you that we've received some concerning news. Telnar seemed hesitant. Long-range sensors have detected a fleet entering this system. Their configuration matches historical records of the Scourge. Foster felt a chill run down his spine. How long until they arrive? Less than a day. Commander Voss is preparing evacuation protocols for the station. Foster turned back to the viewport, looking at his ship with new purpose. Professor, I need to return to the Thunderchild immediately. Why? Asked Telnar, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Because that's not an artifact sitting in your research bay, Foster said quietly. It's a warship, and right now, it might be your only hope. Alarms blared throughout Research Station Epsilon. The once orderly corridors were now filled with Commonwealth citizens rushing to evacuation ships. Commander Voss stood on the command deck, watching as the approaching Scourge fleet appeared on the long-range scanners. 7 warships, reported the tactical officer, his voice tight with fear. Largest is destroyer class. Estimated arrival, 4 hours. Continue evacuation procedures, ordered Voss. Priority to civilians and essential research data. What about the human ship? Asked his second-in-command. Voss's facial tendrils twitched with indecision. We can't tow it. There's no time. The door to the command deck slid open, and Professor Telnar rushed in with Captain Foster close behind. The human moved with purpose, his earlier disorientation gone. Commander, Foster said without preamble, I need access to my ship immediately. We're in the middle of an evacuation, Captain. Voss replied. The Scourge fleet will be here in hours. I know. That's why I need the Thunderchild operational. Voss stared at the human. You can't be serious. That ship is 3,000 years old. Even if you could somehow power it up, what do you think one small vessel could do against 7 Scourge warships? Foster's blue eyes hardened. The Thunderchild was specifically designed to fight the Ravagers, your Scourge. It's equipped with weapons that can penetrate their defenses. A murmur ran through the command deck. Hope mixed with disbelief. How can we trust you? Asked Voss. We know nothing about you or your species. Foster stepped forward, facing the commander directly. You don't have to trust me, but ask yourself this. What other option do you have? Your evacuation ships are civilian vessels. They'll be easy targets for the Scourge. Telnar moved to stand beside the human. Commander, I believe we should let him try. Everything I've learned about Captain Foster's species suggests they were formidable warriors. Voss's skin darkened as he considered his options. Finally, he nodded. Very well, but I'm sending a security team with you. Fine, Foster agreed, but we need to move now. Reactivating the Thunderchild will take time. 30 minutes later, Foster stood on the bridge of his ship, surrounded by Commonwealth security officers and Telnar's research team. The once dark bridge now glowed with emergency lighting, powered by portable generators they had brought aboard. The main reactor is in shutdown mode, Foster explained as he worked at the captain's console. I need to initiate the restart sequence. Will that provide enough power to operate the ship's systems? Asked Telnar. Foster nodded. The Thunderchild uses a fusion reactor. Once started, it can run for decades without refueling. Impossible, muttered one of the security officers. No fusion reactor is that efficient. Foster didn't bother arguing. Instead, he placed his hand on a small panel near the command chair. A blue light scanned his palm. Genetic authentication required, announced a mechanical voice speaking in the human language but translated by Brill's device. Captain Jack Foster, UNSC service number 47291 JF8112, Foster stated clearly. Emergency activation protocol Alpha 9. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the bridge console lit up. Screens flickered to life, displaying information in human language. Authentication accepted, said the ship's computer. Emergency protocol Alpha 9 initiated. Beginning system diagnostics. The aliens watched in amazement as the ancient warship slowly awakened. Lights came on throughout the bridge, and a deep vibration could be felt through the deck plates. Reactor startup sequence in progress, reported the computer. Estimated time to completion 1 hour. We might not have an hour, said Foster grimly. Computer, display current status of all weapons systems. A new screen appeared showing diagrams of various weapons mounted on the ship's hull. Most were marked with red indicators. Not good, Foster muttered. The main railgun is offline. Missile tubes 1 through 4 are damaged. He studied the display. But the AMAT cannons are operational, and we still have the harbinger system. What is an AMAT cannon? Asked Telnar. Antimatter arc technology, Foster explained. Weaponized. Antimatter in a controlled stream. Extremely effective against ravager shields. The aliens exchanged worried glances. Such technology was beyond even the current Commonwealth capabilities. And this harbinger system? Asked Voss, who had joined them on the bridge. Foster's expression became grim. Last resort weapon. Let's hope we don't need it. As the Thunderchild systems came online one by one, the situation outside worsened. The Scourge fleet had accelerated, cutting their arrival time to just 2 hours. Half the station's population had been evacuated, but thousands remained. We need more time, Voss said, watching the tactical display on the Thunderchild's bridge. The alien commander had decided to stay aboard, coordinating the evacuation from there. We might have a way to slow them down, Foster suggested. If we can get the Thunderchild's engines online, we could move to intercept, force them to deal with us before they reach the station. That's suicide, Telnar protested. Foster smiled grimly. Not necessarily. The Thunderchild was built to fight multiple Ravager ships simultaneously, and we have surprise on our side. They won't be expecting to face human weapons. Reactor at 60% capacity, announced the ship's computer. Primary engines available. Foster took the command chair, his hands moving confidently over the controls. Professor Telnar, I'll need someone who understands your current technology to help coordinate with the station. Would you stay aboard? Telnar hesitated, then nodded. I will stay. Commander Voss, you should return to the station. Complete the evacuation. Voss stood straighter. No. If you're willing to risk your life for my people, I will stand with you. I'll need a minimal crew, Foster said. 3 more volunteers to man essential stations. To everyone's surprise, Laurel stepped forward, her tentacles steady. I will stay. My species has quick reflexes. I can operate controls as you direct. Engineer Dax joined her. The reactor systems are similar to our own. I can help monitor them. Brill was the last to volunteer. My translator will be useful for rapid communication. Foster looked at the mismatched crew, 5 aliens of different species and 1 human, and nodded. Thunderchild never had a more unusual crew, but I'll take it. He turned to the security team. The rest of you return to the station, help with the evacuation. As the security officers left the ship, Foster activated the main view screen. The research bay doors were ahead of them, sealed shut. Computer status of maneuvering thrusters. Maneuvering thrusters online, replied the computer. Foster took a deep breath. Telnar, contact the station. Tell them to open the bay doors. But the atmospheric containment field, Telnar began. Will hold, Foster assured him. We need to get the Thunderchild out of this bay. Telnar relayed the message. Moments later, the massive bay doors began to slide apart, revealing the star-filled blackness of space beyond. All crew secure for movement, Foster ordered. Computer activate inertial dampeners. Inertial dampeners online. Confirm the computer. With gentle precision, Foster activated the maneuvering thrusters. The Thunderchild lifted slowly from its berth, hovering in the bay. Forward thrusters, 10%. He commanded. The ancient Warship began to move, sliding forward toward the open bay doors. As it passed through the atmospheric containment field, the bridge crew felt a slight shudder. Then they were out, floating free in space for the first time in 3,000 years. Main engines online, reported the computer. Foster gripped the control panel, a fierce determination in his eyes. Set course to intercept the Scourge fleet. All hands, prepare for combat. The Thunderchild's engines flared to life, pushing the warship forward to meet its ancient enemy once more. On the station's command deck, officers watched in disbelief as the once-dead artifact roared away from the station, trailing blue fire from its engines. They said it was just an archaeological find, whispered one officer. It's not an artifact, replied another, watching the ship accelerate. It's a weapon. The Thunderchild accelerated through space, its ancient engines burning with surprising power. On the bridge, Captain Foster studied the tactical display with intense focus. The 7 Scourge ships were arranged in a standard attack formation. 1. He recognized from battles fought 3,000 years ago. They haven't changed their tactics, he muttered. That's good for us. The evacuation is only 60% complete, reported Commander Voss, who was monitoring communications with the station. We need at least another hour. Foster nodded, grimly. Then we'll give you that hour. He turned to his makeshift crew. Listen carefully. We're about to engage an enemy unlike anything you've faced before. The Scourge, or ravagers as we called them, don't fight like normal opponents. They sacrifice ships without hesitation and use overwhelming numbers. Our advantage is that the Thunderchild was specifically designed to counter their tactics. How can one ship stand against 7? Asked Laurel, her tentacles twitching nervously. We don't need to destroy them all, Foster explained. Just hold them off long enough for the evacuation to complete. He gestured to the tactical display. We'll use the asteroid field to our advantage. The Thunderchild has superior maneuverability in tight spaces. The bridge crew watched as Foster programmed a course that would take them through the densest part of the asteroid field. The Scourge have detected us, announced Telnar, watching his scanner. 2 vessels are breaking formation, moving to intercept. Foster smiled grimly. They've taken the bait. They don't recognize this ship design, so they're sending a smaller force to investigate while the main fleet continues toward the station. Separating their forces, Voss noted with approval. A tactical error. Computer. Status of AMAT cannons, Foster asked. AMAT cannons at 93% charge, replied the ship's AI. Ready to fire on your command. Foster nodded. Reactor status? Reactor at 87% capacity and rising, reported Dax, who had quickly learned to rid the human engineering displays. Your fusion technology is remarkable. It was our greatest achievement. Foster said quietly. Before the end. The two Scourge interceptors grew larger on the view screen. They were organic-looking vessels, their hulls covered in what appeared to be carapace rather than metal, with strange protrusions that glowed with sickly green energy. Those are their bioelectric weapons, Foster explained. Devastatingly effective against conventional shields. He tapped commands into his console. But the Thunderchild doesn't use conventional shields. Scourge vessels charging weapons, reported Telnar. Hold course, ordered Foster. Let them fire first. The tension on the bridge was palpable as the distance closed. Then with startling speed, both Scourge ships unleashed streams of green energy that twisted through space toward the Thunderchild. Brace for impact, Foster commanded, but remained calm. The enemy weapons struck the Thunderchild and flowed around it, dissipating harmlessly into space. How? Gasped Voss. Quantum deflection field, Foster explained with a smile. Developed specifically for Ravager weapons. Now, let's show them what we can do. AMAT cannons, target the lead vessel, and fire. From ports on either side of the Thunderchild's hull, brilliant blue beams of energy lanced out. They struck the first Scourge ship precisely where its weapons cluster protruded. The alien vessel shuddered, its carapace cracking as blue energy spread across its surface. Then with shocking suddenness, it simply disintegrated. The bridge crew stared in stunned silence. One down, Foster said calmly. Target the second vessel. The remaining Scourge interceptor tried to evade, but the Thunderchild's targeting systems anticipated its movements. A second burst from the AMAT cannons caught it mid-turn with the same devastating result. 2 Scourge vessels destroyed, announced Telnar, his voice filled with awe. The remaining 5 are altering course. They're all coming for us now, Foster nodded. As expected, they recognized the threat. He turned to Voss. Commander, tell your station to accelerate evacuation. The Scourge will be focused on us for a while. But I can't guarantee how long we can keep their attention. What's our next move? Asked Dax. We head deeper into the asteroid field, Foster replied, adjusting their course. Make them chase us through the rocks. Their ships are larger and less maneuverable than the Thunderchild. As they plunged into the dense cluster of asteroids, the 5 remaining Scourge ships followed, their formation breaking apart as they negotiated the dangerous terrain. They're splitting up to surround us, noted Voss. Perfect, Foster said with grim satisfaction. Computer, prepare Harbinger system for deployment. Warning, responded the computer. Harbinger system deployment will drain significant power from all other systems. Recommend against activation with multiple hostile vessels present. Acknowledged, Foster replied, but prepare it anyway. For the next 30 minutes, the Thunderchild played a deadly game of hide-and-seek through the asteroid field. Its AMAT cannon struck whenever a Scourge ship came into range, damaging 2 more enemy vessels. But the Thunderchild didn't escape unscathed. A lucky shot from a Scourge destroyer damaged one of its engine nacelles, reducing their maneuverability. Reactor. Showing strain, reported Dax. We can't keep this up much longer. Status of station evacuation? Foster asked Voss. 92% complete, replied the commander. The last transports are preparing to launch. Foster checked the tactical display. The 3 undamaged Scourge ships were closing in, coordinating their approach to trap the Thunderchild against a massive asteroid. Time for our final move, he decided. Computer, status of Harbinger system. Harbinger system ready for deployment, confirmed the computer. Warning, system will consume all available power. Ship will operate on emergency reserves for 17 minutes following deployment. What exactly does this Harbinger system do? Asked Telnar nervously. Foster's expression was solemn. It creates a temporary quantum singularity, what you might call a miniature black hole. It only lasts for seconds, but that's long enough. The alien crew members exchanged shocked glances. You carry a black hole weapon? Exclaimed Voss. That's beyond anything we've ever conceived. It was a desperate time, Foster said simply. Computer, plot course to coordinate point Alpha, maximum speed. The Thunderchild surged forward, its damaged engine straining. The 3 Scourge vessels followed, sensing victory. Get ready, Foster warned his crew. This will be rough. The Thunderchild burst out of the asteroid field into open space, the scourge ships close behind. Now, Foster commanded. Reverse thrust, full power, deploy harbinger. The Thunderchild stopped with shocking suddenness, inertial dampeners barely compensating. From its bow, a small, innocuous-looking projectile launched. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, space itself seemed to fold inward at a point directly in the path of the pursuing scourge vessels. Light bent around an invisible center that grew rapidly darker. The scourge ships tried to evade, but they were too close, their momentum too great. One by one, they were pulled into the swirling vortex of distorted space-time, their massive hulls crumpling like paper as they approached the event horizon. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the singularity collapsed in on itself and vanished, leaving only scattered debris where 3 warships had been. The bridge was silent except for the warning alarms indicating the Thunderchild's power reserves were critically low. All scourge vessels destroyed or disabled, reported Telner finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Foster leaned back in his command chair, exhaustion visible on his face. Status of station evacuation? Complete, Voss replied with quiet amazement. All transports away safely. He turned to Foster. You did it. You saved thousands of lives. Foster nodded wearily. The Thunderchild did what it was built to do. He looked around at the alien crew. You all performed admirably. Thank you. As emergency power kept the ship's basic systems functioning, Foster activated the communication system. This is Captain Foster of the UNSC Thunderchild to all Commonwealth vessels. The scourge threat has been neutralized. Repeat, the threat has been neutralized. Cheers erupted from the speakers as the news spread among the evacuation fleet. What now, Captain? Asked Telnar. Foster looked out at the stars that had shifted position during his long sleep. Now, he said, we find out if any other sleeper ships survived. There were 12 of us, scattered throughout the galaxy. He touched a control panel, activating a special transmitter. This will send a wake-up call to any Thunderchild sister ship still out there. And if there are none? Asked Voss. Foster's expression was determined. Then the Thunderchild will stand with the Commonwealth against the scourge. My mission hasn't changed in 3,000 years. Protect humanity and its allies from extinction. The Commonwealth would welcome such an ally, said Voss formally, and such knowledge. As the Thunderchild drifted on emergency power, its systems slowly recovering, a light began blinking on the long-range communication panel. Captain, called Brill from the communication station. We're receiving a response to your transmission. Foster's eyes widened. He moved quickly to the panel. Source? Multiple sources, Brill replied excitedly. 7 distinct signals from different sectors. A smile slowly spread across Foster's face, the first genuine smile since he'd awakened. It seems, he said, looking at his new allies, that humanity isn't as extinct as we thought. Across the